And let's start with the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Feels weird to say that. It should be the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl or something. Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Syracuse, Minnesota. Minnesota, 10-point favorite here, over under 42. This game will be played at Yankees Stadium in the Bronx, 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, Thursday afternoon. Syracuse opt-outs. Their star tackle, Matthew Bergeron, declared for the NFL draft he won't play, and running back Sean Tucker, obviously one of the best backs in the country, is also out. Transfer portal, their wide receiver, Courtney Jackson, defensive end, Steve Linton, their starting quarterback, Darian Chestnut. They already lost one of their best cornerbacks to an injury early in the season. They also lost their offensive coordinator, Robert Ane. He's going to go to NC State. Quarterback coach Jason Beck, who real highly respected. He'll take over play calling. Don't think it's a huge transition there. New defensive coordinator, though. They hired Rocky Long, but he won't come on until after the bowl. So there's a lot of changes for Syracuse. Minnesota, they do lose a safety, Michael Dixon, and linebacker Braylon Oliver, two pretty important pieces on that defense. When I look at this game, the Syracuse run defense all year was horrendous. And so some of it's just by scheme, the way that they play. And that's not great against Mo Ibrahim and this Minnesota offensive line. And if you look, like Syracuse outside the top 100 in rush success rate, EPA per rush, 125th in stuff rate, 117th in line yards, 124th in opportunity rate. Minnesota's offensive line, basically top 20 across the board in all those categories, and they run it at a top 5 rate nationally. It's a team that wants to run the ball, run it some more, and run it again. So they should be able to move the ball on the ground, which might end up being the difference. They also have big success rate differences on 3rd and 4th downs on both sides of the ball. 2 solid kickers in this game for what it's worth. Maybe weather, worth looking into. But the question for me is, what does Syracuse, this total is 42. I think Minnesota will be able to move the ball on the ground. What does Syracuse do? They've been talking about, Garrett Trader's talking about how fun practices have been, how the offense is just hinting at, like, they're going to come out and air this out and maybe go fast. Now, Minnesota is a snail. They're going to run the ball, and they are a snail. But Syracuse, they might come out here and just go high, up tempo, start chucking the ball around. There's no Sean Tucker. And I think Minnesota can move the ball. Maybe, and look, bowl totals, when they're under 45, overs historically have been a great bet. Teams play a lot looser, and you'll see trick plays. Teams go for it more on 4th downs. So maybe this is an over, under the radar over. I mean, Minnesota overs are ugly, but what do you see here, and what do you expect most importantly from the Syracuse offense now that Sean Tucker and their star tackle aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, you cannot underestimate what Sean Tucker was to this offense with 324 rushing attempts this season. If you take his rushing attempts and you take Garrett Schrader's 38 scrambles, because scrambles are not designed, you don't know when they're going to happen. That is 75% of Syracuse's rushing attempts. Massive loss. Now, You look back there and you say, LaQuint Allen, he has explosive numbers. He can run the ball. Go and look at his 180 yards. 112 of them came against Wagner, right? I mean, the numbers that he has, the minimal ones he has, it came from one game. And the Minnesota defense finished 10th in rushing success rate. They're absolutely going to shut down any attempts to run the ball. So I get it. I mean, Garrett Schrader may be giving away the game plan here, but you're going to go after a Minnesota defense. They're excellent at defending the pass also, but they lose their 2 key contributors at safety and Michael Dixon, Steven Ortiz. They're both in the portal here. So Syracuse, that is one sneaky way that I would look at the over here.
And also they haven't played, the greatest schedule of passing offenses for what it's worth.
Yeah. And I would project this game to be 49. So I think I might be on the over by the time you and I get done talking about this. But I think another thing that you want to look at that I'm trying to handicap is a relationship between Dino Babers and PJ Fleck. You have to remember, these were 2 MAC coaches that played against each other 2014, 2015. They traded wins against each other. The very next season, when they had their current positions at Minnesota and Syracuse, they were both on ESPN Film Room during the national championship, extremely chummy with each other. They had a Zoom call last week, and it was nothing but respect and chummy with each other. There's a very good, I mean, PJ Fleck can rub people the wrong way, but his relationship with Dino Babers is actually very healthy and very positive. So I'm not sure it's something where, because PJ Fleck has been in bowls before. There are two previously he's been in where he just ran it up as hard as he could. And so I think that's the question here. If Syracuse can't defend the rush and Minnesota wants to grind the clock, it really matters for the backdoor here with a number that's hanging between 7.5 and 9.5. I don't think Fleck will run it up here, but that's just looking at situations where he's been one-on-one with Dino Babers over the past 7 years. So I do like the over here. I think Minnesota absolutely is going to be able to run all over. Maybe a first half bet I think is more appropriate. I am a little bit worried about the safeties missing for that Gophers defense. And that's exactly where Syracuse is going to go. So
and Minnesota also doesn't get any pressure. They're bottom 10 in sack rate, and that has killed Syracuse all year because their offensive line is basically bottom 10 in sack rate. So maybe they'll finally have some time to throw it, because that is the one thing that Minnesota's defense does not do. They do not get any pressure. Do we expect Tanner Morgan to play for Minnesota?
I mean, the question is still out there. I mean, there could be that morning opt-out thing. So definitely I would keep my ears open. I would buy Syracuse at 10 if it was on the board right now. No reason to act in a dead number. And I do like the over. But if Tanner Morgan's not playing, then that really kind of makes Minnesota one-dimensional. So I don't know. I think more I've talked myself into. I think I'm going to lay money in on the over on this 41.5.